Welcome back, guests, to No Vacancy. We appreciate all of our new guests who decided to subscribe and stay with us. We really appreciate it. So let's get into it. Tonight's story will be a compilation of mysteries and the unexplained. Let's begin. One morning, I woke up and noticed my camera was on top of my sofa, opposite of my bed. I knew I didn't put it there, because it was a very expensive camera, and it could have very easily fallen from this place. I had definitely placed it in my cabinet. I went over and picked it up and turned it on and clicked the button to view the photos. There were hundreds of photos of me sleeping, all seemingly taken from the back of the sofa. I was literally so freaked out I couldn't stop crying. I lived alone. It was just photo after photo of me sleeping. The photos were taken in quick snap, where the camera takes approximately one photo per second. I later realized that the camera didn't even have a quick snap setting, so technically it was impossible for the camera to take the photos at all. The timestamps suggest all the photos were taken between 2 and 3 a.m. I've never figured out what the hell happened, how the camera got onto the sofa, or how it's even possible for the camera with no quick snap to quick snap. But I still have a USB with the photos on it, and it still freaks me the fuck out. Weirdly, this has actually jogged my memory about something potentially related I had completely forgotten about, that was sitting deep, deep down in my memory. Approximately 12 months before the camera incident, I received a letter in my P.O. box that was typed, not handwritten, and addressed directly to me, saying that if I did not meet the sender, they would kill me in my sleep. To be honest, I dead set thought it was just a stupid joke, because I couldn't think of anybody that would want me to meet with them, and I threw the letter away and never told anybody. I got 3 or 4 of those threatening letters demanding that I respond, but no actual way of responding or no hint about who it was from. The senders wrote like I should know who it is, but I did not. One letter did provide a time and place to meet, but of course I didn't attend. That was the final letter. I did move houses and change my postal address shortly after the camera incident, though. I'm alive right now, so obviously they're all talk and no action. Story 2. The I-15. It was right about high noon and very hot, not a cloud in the sky. She had a fancy Lexus at the time with a touchscreen console on the dash that could play DVDs while driving. I remember we were on a long stretch of road with a lot of space in between cars on the highway. One minute we see nothing ahead of us, and then all of a sudden, a woman was walking across the highway right in front of our vehicle. My mom swerved behind her and barely missed her. She pulled off to the shoulder and we looked behind us, and we see her go all the way across the highway, including westbound traffic. Then she turned around and walked all the way across again, each time nearly getting clipped by an unsuspecting oncoming car like ourselves. At one point, a semi-truck almost hit her head-on, missing her by literally 1 step. Each step she took was a steady and confident step, looking ahead of her and never batting an eye to the oncoming traffic. She was barefoot, mind you, and walking on the boiling hot asphalt with zero sense of urgency. So my mom calls 911. We're directed to Highway Patrol, and they say that they've received numerous reports and that they're headed out to it. My mom decided, after hanging up, to slowly reverse down the shoulder to get a better look to see if she's okay. Yes, I know, stupid in more than one way. As we get to a spot behind her now, she's crossed the highway and is now in front of our vehicle. This part I will never forget. The woman slowly turns her head and looks at us, and is now slowly but steadily walking towards our car. She was white as day in every way. White nightgown, pale, dry, wrinkled skin, white hair, and the palest bluish-gray eyes I've ever seen, and barefoot. Almost looked like the Walking Dead version of Rose Dawson from the Titanic. I was in the passenger seat, which was on the shoulder. When my mom made eye contact, she froze, absolutely shut down. I remember the woman walking so close to my door, I could see her eyes make contact with mine. It looked as if she was blind and lifeless, but could not just see me, but see into and through me, like into my soul. I went cold immediately. She reached for my door handle, and I remember screaming at my mom to punch the gas, and without hesitation, she came to quick, and we peeled out of there. In the back window, I saw her watch us speed off, and then continued across the road again. A mile down the highway, we called Highway Patrol to see what happened, and they didn't have a clue what we were talking about. They said that they had got no reports of a woman crossing the highway. My mom, to this day, still doesn't remember the time between when we reversed to when we dipped out. I have no idea what happened that day, except for what I witnessed and experienced. As a child, visiting my grandma's house, my mom's mom, whenever I left the house, I'd wave next door to Ken, who was always sat in the bay window, looking out at the sea. They lived right across the coast from the North Sea in Hartpool. We'd never really talked, but it was a little wave before I went to get in the car. One time, I'm leaving my grandma's house. I'm in front of my mom, who stopped at the door to talk to my gran. So I head down the steps and towards the gate. I turn back and I see Ken in the window. Big smiles as usual, waving at me. I give him a wave back. He stands up and gives me the thumbs up and wanders towards the back of the room. My mom comes walking down the steps and asks, "Who are you waving at?" I replied, "Ken." To this day, I can remember my mom's face. She just went white, but didn't say anything to me. It was only a few weeks later when she got the courage to tell me that Ken had died a few days prior to our visit to my grams. I don't believe in ghosts, but I know I saw him. I can still picture his gray striped sweater with the light stripes across it, him waving and getting up out of his chair. There was no one in the house. He lived by himself. I'm a firefighter, and we got a call for an overdose around 3 a.m. to a rough part of our district in the middle of winter. Unfortunately, the patient was long gone, and her dealer or whatever found her like that when he dropped some stuff off. As we were packing up our stuff, mind you, this is an absolutely trashed mobile home, I hear something down the hall that said, "Lights?" I asked my partner if he said anything, as it was just him and I cleaning up, and he said no. I walked to the far end of the trailer, where I had heard it, and shined my flashlight. I get a reflection out of the window. They have a small tool shed, and it had a flickering light. It piqued my interest, so my partner and I went out there. We hear crying, and notice the door was padlocked. We cut it, and this little 6-year-old girl was in there. She said her mom puts her in there when she gets mad at her. She said she got scared when she heard the sirens and didn't know what to do. To this day, I have no idea what happened or where the voice came from, but I'll take the win on it. This one is strange to me because it was so long ago, and I'm convinced I have to be remembering things wrong. I was a young kid at the grocery store, and I saw this toy helicopter, like Hot Wheels sized, that I really wanted for some reason. I, of course, didn't buy it, but the memory of it stuck in my head. A few nights later, I had a dream where I was playing with the helicopter, but I realized it was a dream, and stupid young me thought that if I put it under my pillow, it would still be there when I woke up. After that, I woke up and eagerly checked under my pillow to get it. For some reason, it was right where I left it in the dream. As a kid, it didn't surprise me to find it there, as it all made perfect sense to me then. But years later, I have no clue how the toy helicopter actually got underneath that pillow. I have very vivid and intense dreams. One night, when I was around 13 or 14, I was dreaming of a safari hunt for T-Rexes, and we had to save a golden idol from pirates in the jungle. Strange dream, but during it, while running, everything suddenly stopped. I saw myself face me, not sure how to phrase it, but I said, "Amethyst, wake up. Everything is about to shake, and you're in danger. Wake up." I woke up instantly and sat up confused. Roughly 15 seconds later, my boxer puppy woke up and started whimpering and whining, and the rabbit I had started hopping in his cage. Seconds later, an earthquake occurred. It wasn't very big, but strong enough to knock several photos down and my shelf. Now, this specific shelf was mounted above my head. It was made of a very thick type of wood, and on it was a collection of random prized items, including a quart jar filled with sand and shells, several large books, a heavy statue, etc. Sufficient to say, it was quite heavy. When it fell directly onto my pillow, where my head had been a moment before. I hadn't ever felt an earthquake, and live in a northern Midwest state that rarely gets earthquakes strong enough to be felt. I have had other dreams since that foreshadowed events, but that was the only one that happened immediately after, and it still gives me the chills. My father was self-employed as a sound equipment installer and often would come and go during the day, and my mom worked 9 to 5 at a law firm, so I was alone a lot. It was summer break, but I wasn't driving yet. I spent a lot of time outside, and this was before the time everyone had a cell phone, so I'd often take our cordless home phone outside with me. I went outside one day and realized I'd forgotten the phone. When I tried to go back inside to get it, the door was locked. Not the handle, which I may have written off as something I accidentally did on my way out. The deadbolt. The handle freely turned, but the deadbolt was engaged. The deadbolt that requires a key to lock from the outside, which I did not have. I stood there dumbfounded for a few minutes. Nobody else was home, and the only other entrance to the house was a set of sliding doors in the basement that were always locked. What the hell just happened? I kept trying to open it like an idiot for a while before finally reassigning myself to borrowing the neighbor's phone and calling my stepdad. He was in town, and after asking me if I was sure 1,000 times, came by to unlock the door. I'll never forget him saying, "Yep, the deadbolt was completely thrown. I can't explain that." I spent the rest of the afternoon inside trying to recreate the situation. I slammed the door shut so many times in an attempt to get the deadbolt to wobble and lock itself, but it never did. And honestly, I didn't expect it to. Fast forward 2 years later, this afternoon, I had about 30 minutes between class and practice, and I drove home to get a snack. When I got there, my mom was at work and my stepdad's van was gone, so I assumed he was gone as well. The door was locked. Now, when you walk into this home, right in front of you to the left is the kitchen, the right is my bedroom, and the middle is the staircase going downstairs. I unlocked the door, came inside, and turned into the kitchen with my back to the staircase. As I was making a sandwich, I heard someone downstairs. I turned back around and the staircase door was open, stairwell light was on, and someone was clearly downstairs. At the time, I thought, wasn't that door closed when I got here? But I also rationalized because my stepdad's van was a cargo van, and it wasn't uncommon for someone to borrow it to haul things. So I assumed he was home, his van was just borrowed, and I went to the top of the stairs. I stood there, looking down the stairs, eating my sandwich, and I almost said something. It was almost out of my mouth, but something stopped me. I still don't know why I didn't yell, "Hi, Jay," down the stairs. Instead, I turned around and left, and I left the door unlocked because he was home, right? When I got back from practice, my mom was mad at me because Jay said that he came home around 5 p.m. to an unlocked house. He had a lot of expensive equipment in the basement. I was always to lock the door. I tried telling her what I had seen. He was home at 4. She said he wasn't. I swore he was. Something was home. My brother believed me, but my mom never did. I lived in a shitty trailer in my early 20s when I was poor with 2 young kids. It had 2 bedrooms, which I had given to the kids, and I slept on the couch in the living room, which was in direct line of sight to the front door. I put the kids to bed around 9 p.m., and I always locked the door. Always. I still to this day clearly remember locking both the handle and the deadbolt, and checking to make sure it was fully locked before taking a shower. Eventually, I fell asleep. I woke up suddenly around 3 a.m. on high alert. As my eyes cleared and I started thinking sensibly, I realized I was staring into the street. My front door was wide open. Not like it's a little open or cracked, or I didn't quite close it all the way, and a strong wind came along. It was fully open, like 90-degree angle here. Plus, I had a glass storm door that was fully closed and latched, blocking any wind that we might have had, which we didn't have anyways. I got up and walked to the door to close it, and that's when I lost my shit. Y'all, the deadbolt was still in the locked position. It was fully turned to lock, sticking out into the living room air for God and everyone to see. You ever have those moments where you swear there's ice in your veins? That was it for me. I've never been scared like that in my life. In a closed door, you can't even turn the deadbolt to fully locked without it being lined up in the door jamb properly. I knew I'd locked that door, and yet here it was, staring me in the face. I didn't sleep without the lights on for a week. When I was younger, we lived in a 110-year-old Victorian house. Everyone would notice weird things. I was home alone, organizing the silverware, when I dropped a fork onto the table, only to have it bounce once and fly at the wall like someone slapped it. I still have no idea how you can drop something straight down and have it launch horizontally for 5 feet. My parents, when they first bought the house, turned off all the lights, 5 floors if you count the basement and the attic. My mom did the top 2, father did the bottom. They met in the middle, went to the first floor, left, got in the car, and noticed that not only was the 3rd floor light on, but the blinds were now up. We had a seesaw. My mother turned on the light and saw it violently going up and down. I was in the basement and felt the hand brush down my back. I jumped and turned and saw no one there. I convinced myself it was just my shirt moving weird. As I went up the steps, I heard giggling. When I was older, I was sitting on the couch and heard my dad say, "What the hell, watch out," right before a framed puzzle we had fell on me. My dad said he saw it lift itself off of the hook. We had a Mastiff, a Rottweiler, and a German Shepherd. They refused to go to the attic. Our entrance had 2 sets of doors, the front doors, then a small room, then the second set of doors. We never locked those doors, as it was 2 large bolts that went into the floor, and then a 3rd bolt that held the 2 doors together. Locking it was very hard with a key, so you could only do it from the inside with considerable force. We came home one day, and the door was locked with all 3 bolts. In other words, our completely sealed house was locked from the inside. My mother flipped, grabbed us, and ran to a payphone to call the police, because if that door is locked, then there was someone in the house, unless they left via a 2nd or 3rd story window. 3 cop cars came. They unlocked the door with my mother's key and swept every last inch of the place down to one of them going into our crawl space. Nothing. Not only that, my mother's gold necklace was laying on the table, and all the windows were locked. We had a family friend who is a cop, and one of my uncles who's a cop come spend the night. The next morning, everyone is up, and my uncle goes to leave, only to see that the door is again locked from the inside. We removed those locks that same day. My Mastiff was laying next to me while I was watching TV. Suddenly, he jumps up and backs into me. He's growling and snarling while staring up at the steps. The other 2 dogs run in and immediately have their ears go back and their mohawks go up. This went on for several minutes. Our German Shepherd started inching towards the step and did a little lunge, nipping at the air, baring his teeth. About 5 seconds later, I heard what sounded like someone full sprinting up the steps of the 1st floor, from the landing to the 2nd floor steps, then the 3rd. I called my mom from the house phone. While on the phone, I heard what could only be described as a wail from the 3rd floor. Years later, my parents are divorced. I'm with my dad for the weekend. I help him clean the 3rd floor. We put the toys in a large toy chest from the closet they were in. While we were brushing our teeth, I go pale. I'm hearing something. So I shut off the water and ask my dad to listen. We're both completely quiet. The sound starts again. It's the sound of clink clink, but with a type of rhythm to it. I couldn't place it at first, then said, "Dad, I think that's the xylophone." We go up, and the toy chest is open, and the xylophone is on the floor. I was about 18 to 20, around 2008, and in the back seat of the car, going down the highway. It wasn't windy out in the slightest, unless you count the wind from the car going 60 miles an hour on the highway, but that's irrelevant. We're going between two large hills, not mountains, but they're about 50 feet tall. And atop of one of the hills is what looks like an all-black hot air balloon kind of thing. Not made of cloth or fabric. It's clearly metal and had no basket, and it has no sunlight or reflection like a black matte color. No wind, but this thing is moving like you see UFOs zip around in movies. It's literally going like 100 plus miles an hour all over the place in different directions, and turning upside down and sideways super fast. There were several cars pulled over on the side of the highway with people outside gawking at it. We didn't pull over, but Mom and Dad also commented that they had no fucking clue what it was and had never seen anything like that before. My dad tried rationalizing it as a fallen weather balloon, but it looked nothing like a weather balloon on Google Images. Someone else I told this to said it was probably a broken hot air balloon, but this was very clearly not made of anything flexible like cloth. It was very stiff and not 100% the exact same shape. Thanks, guests, for your stay here at No Vacancy in room 66. Remember to leave your thoughts in the comments, hit the like button, and subscribe.